don't even know where to begin because I am like split down the middle. On one hand, I look at WWE and go, fair play WWE, at least you looked at your record low ratings and you tried to do something different. But then as a fan who just watched Monday Night Raw, I feel like I entered some kind of crazy time machine and I'm now living in a future where nothing makes sense and where rules change within 120 minutes of the rule coming into force to begin with. Anyway, my name is Simon Miller. You are watching Ups and Downs, the show where we get the good things up and we get the bad things down. Today, we're going to do that with the latest episode of Monday Night Raw. And if you haven't seen it, brace yourselves, because your own brain is about to explode. Not literally. Let's up those downs. The start of Raw does get an up because Vince McMahon actually said tonight is going to be a historic episode of Monday Night Raw that you're never gonna forget. And then he went, why? And he even said it in the same tone that I do. So that's confirmed. Vinnie Mac watches Ups and Downs. He watches Y Series. And I really appreciate that, Vince. You can have a damn up. From here, my word, what on earth? As you probably figured out, Vince McMahon did indeed start this week's episode of Raw, but then Roman Reigns came out because he'd been on the old Twitter machine over the weekend saying, I don't care about the brand split. I want to turn up on Monday night, so I'm just going to do that. And he did. He said he's not going to obey any of that anymore because back in December, Vince McMahon had told the fans that they were the authority now, and clearly he had lied. And fair play to Roman, that is 100% true. Nothing has changed since then, and apparently nothing has changed since we did the Superstar Shake-Up a couple of weeks ago, because then Daniel Bryan just came out. SmackDown's Daniel Bryan. Now, don't forget we haven't seen him since he lost at WrestleMania, but here he was just swanning around on Monday nights, and he was still really mad about everything, and he said he'd come to Raw because he wanted to have an intellectual conversation with Vince McMahon, but that made no sense because 2 weeks ago I saw Vince McMahon on SmackDown, so why couldn't they have just had the chat there? McMahon then got all flustered and he was all like, I've assigned you to this show, but you're coming on to this show and nobody cares. And then that was tripled because Kofi Kingston also arrived on Raw. So basically, what you were meant to take away from this is the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks, all that stuff with the brand split and the Superstar Shake-Up, it was absolutely unimportant, and more for you and more for me. I'm in this too for buying in or caring because it wasn't worth the paper it had been printed on. Down. Kofi told Bryan that there was no need for any of this and he could have just asked him if he wanted another match. And these two shouted at each other for ages as Roman and Vince just looked on really, really confused. And then my lovely friends, it happened. Let me introduce you to the Wildcard Rule, an epiphany that McMahon had during this segment, and I'm going to try and explain it, but I don't even think that I understand it. But basically now, at any point in time, 3 wrestlers from Raw can go to SmackDown, and 3 wrestlers from SmackDown can come across to Raw. But does that mean, like, for a one-off episode? Do they come in to do a feud like in the old territory system? So they'll be in Raw for a month? Is it permanent? I don't have a clue. No one made any sense of it, and it gets worse later on, but I will say this, going back to what we talked about in the intro, credit to WWE in the sense that they're not just ignoring the bad TV ratings, they have tried to do something to, whip up a frenzy and get people interested in WWE television again. This is just so confusing, I don't know what to make of it. And also, when I tune in to a Raw or SmackDown, how am I meant to know who is on which brand unless it's like specifically told to me before that program starts? That just hurts. It hurts. But again, an E for effort, or in this case, an up for effort. Because I think we have to give them something. Like, it wouldn't be fair for us all to be last week going, oh, they never do anything. They should try something different. Oh, they're really boring. And they try something different, and we go, well, we still don't like that anyway. And also, look, 6 weeks down the line, it may be okay. But if you're thinking, oh, Millie, you're too positive, don't worry, we're going to get into it. Drew McIntyre then popped into view, and he still hates Roman Reigns, and then Vince McMahon just made 2 WrestleMania rematches. It is going to be Drew versus Roman, and we're also going to get in our main event, Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Look, if you were trying to keep an audience hooked throughout the show, this wasn't the worst way to do it. It wasn't over as then AJ Styles decided he should come to the ring, and then at one point, it was just AJ and Vince McMahon because everybody else just vanished. At no point in the history of all time has WWE felt more like a play you'd see at the theatre. It was like some producer went, exit stage right, and they all just trotted off. Maybe they were all, I don't know, they fell to the ground. Maybe they're in a hole. Maybe they went into the Phantom Zone. AJ was mad because finally he gets to Raw and then McMahon starts playing around with all the rules. And now Seth Rollins' best friend is available for Monday nights. But is he, AJ? Is he? Because I don't know, and I don't see how you would know either. It wasn't explained. It may just be this evening because Vince McMahon kept using the word could. That was the word. That was the word of the day. Could. So maybe next week we could have a flipping Tyrannosaurus Rex on Raw. Be all right with that. Bring in a T-Rex. He would win the title. This was clearly a planned segment in terms of everything we saw last week because eventually Seth Rollins was out there too and he didn't like the fact that AJ had punched him in the face last week and they wanted a fight and McMahon agreed. But of course, we then had to go back to the old WWE playbook. Instead of letting them wage war with each other, they were going to be a tag team on this evening and just take on another tag team. And if you're asking yourself, Simon, why has it taken you so long to explain all of this? Well, it went on for around about 30 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating. Again, though, aside from the whole, we'll put two feuding wrestlers into a team and see how they do, at least this was different, and you know this. I hate the fact we've taken the brand split round the back and just shot it in the head, but it wasn't working anyway. It's like flogging a dead horse. Was anyone actually tuning in to the brand split? No, they weren't, because we saw the numbers. So I am going to see where this goes down the line. And again, I'm not saying it's good. And I also realize before you say it in the comments, yes, I, Simon Miller, am an idiot, because this is the exact same thing that I did back in December when we had the whole McMahon family going, you're the authority now, and absolutely nothing shifted. So I guess this is last chance saloon. Welcome, would you like a drink? There you go. It's on me. No, it's not. Give me some money, otherwise my business will go under. All that said, I'm now going to do a 180 because who the hell thought it was a good idea for the tag team to be facing AJ and Seth to be Baron Corbin versus Bobby Lashley? That could be a match from any Raw we've seen over the last 6 months, and that's the whole point. It's not working. Now, you're being hypocritical, WWE, because you do one thing where you try and change things up, but this was the same thing we see all the time. Down. It was mostly that I just felt like I'd seen this before, and I get it. Seth Rollins and AJ Styles have fallen out, but why do we have to do this? Also, didn't we do this with Styles Nakamura when they were feuding, and now 12 months later, we're just doing the same thing again? And you already know what happened. AJ Styles went to give Baron Corbin the phenomenal forearm. Big boy Baron moved. He hit Seth Rollins. He was so sick of it all that he just walked to the back, and that allowed Baron Corbin to hit the end of days on our Universal Champion and get the pin. So there, surely, is a future #1 contender. We also saw The Miz backstage hanging out waiting for Shane McMahon, even though right now, I don't even know which one is on Raw and which one is on SmackDown. It was Sami Zayn time next, who brilliantly questioned what fans were going to complain about this week's, given that we had this new Wildcard Rule and that later on we were going to have a WWE Championship match. I enjoyed it because it felt like he was talking directly to me. Well, Sami, the real issue is the constant changes means that we as fans can't buy in, and that directly affects our ability to enjoy any story that we're being told. Also on top of that, because it is a bit like a crazy house where you never know what you're going to get when you do turn in, you can't trust the process because of everything that's already happened. However, I still love you, Sami. You can get up. The twist of the tale this time is that I think we found out who he's going to be feuding with, although like a lot on this show, I don't actually know. But after he had gone off on the microphone for around about 5 minutes, Braun Strowman arrived and he chased him off. And don't forget, we have already seen Braun Strowman versus Sami Zayn in the past, and it didn't work out very well for Sami Zayn. In between all this, the Lucha House Party came out for our match, but then we cut backstage, and as it turned out, Sami Zayn had been thrown into like a skip into a big garbage bin, and the truck that was there to take the trash away was slowly driving, and Braun Strowman didn't think about warning him that yes, you may be about to kill a man by crushing them. So that's what we got. Sami Zayn, rest in peace. For some reason, the Luchas then did indeed beat a bunch of jobbers, and that was doubly strange because on last week's episode of Raw, they were being eaten alive by the Viking Raiders, Experienced Warriors, whatever the hell they're called now. But look, I guess if you do want to introduce flashy moves to Raw and you want to have a focus on it, these are the three guys to do it. So I'll give it an up. And it ended after Vince McMahon gave somebody a shooting star press. The angles were coming thick and fast after this, as we saw Natalya, Dana Brooke and Naomi all receive invitations from Lacey Evans saying, look, please come to the ring later in formal attire so you can watch my match and so that I can address you afterwards. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really cheesy and it was a little bit awkward and felt like one of those low-end soap operas, but at least it was different, and I'm gonna try and support different. Up. Ricochet then beat Robert Roode to retain his position in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and thank you WWE, at least I got just a tiny bit of continuity here, because obviously 2 weeks ago, Roode beat Ricochet, and now that Ricochet is in the ladder match, Robert was given his chance to get in. Fortunately, he failed. He was hit with a 630. That was that. Didn't go more than 5 minutes. Give it up. Why we're already down on the moustache one, as ever, I do not know. What do you want from me? I'm just a guy that watches wrestling. I don't have any superpowers. Thankfully, even when all else is going off the rails, you can always rely on Samoa Joe. Up. It was confirmed that it's going to be Samoa versus Rey Mysterio at the pay-per-view for the US Championship. And here Rey was backstage and he was showing his son around. And when he said, oh, look, boy, can you go get me a bottle of water, meaning they were alone, Samoa Joe popped up like a shark and he was ready to strike. Joe said that he knew Dominic had been around the business for a long time because of his dad and Uncle Eddie, and he did the whole air quotes thing. I didn't do that. He did, but said, you go and tell the father of yours that come Money in the Bank, Samoa Joe is waiting and he's gonna tear him limb from limb. And the way you said it, you were like, yeah, you are Samoa Joe. You're probably gonna kill him. And even then, I like you so much, maybe I'll forgive you. Also, look, if we are making changes, let's just put Samoa Joe at the very top of the card. Cheers. We got the fallout from all that women's invitation stuff earlier, and more fool me for thinking it may turn into something different. Lacey Evans just beat some jobber in the ring in around about 40 seconds and then told Naomi, Natalya, Dana Brooke and Alexa Bliss for some reason, who turned up, that, oh, you're all participants in the Money in the Bank match, but when I beat Becky Lynch, if any of you try and cash in, I'm gonna give you what for. Didn't wiggle her finger like that, but I am. None of that pleased any of them, nor did it please Becky Lynch, who came out. They had a little bit of a brawl. Lacey Evans escaped the disarmer, and that was that. It was a little bit dull. Down. Daniel Bryan followed this up, though, by cutting a promo where he looked directly down the lens of the camera like I'm doing now. And obviously, WWE in the past has frowned upon that, and it was really cool. He was super mad. He really, really hates Kofi Kingston, and he's going to win his WWE Championship back later on. I say more of this WWE. I mean, it's nothing revolutionary, but it certainly felt more real. Up. The Viking Raiders, or Viking Riders, as my autocorrect changed it to, were then out to beat Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder in a non-title tag team match. And I really shouldn't be for that, but again, at least I can kind of understand what's going on here. The call-ups from NXT haven't lost since they did debut, so now someone backstage went, well, let's give them a shot against the champions, no title, see what happens. They won, so now when they have a championship match, at least I can go as a fan, well, I understand. Although this did make Zack and Kurt look like absolute idiots, but I'm going to give it an up. And of course, they won with the Viking Experience. Do you miss those days? I miss those days when we were just mad that a team were called the Viking Experience. Now we've got a crazy wildcard rule. I'm just going to go down here. Push the button. Here I go. I'm going down into my safe space. It's my safe space where I don't have to worry about crazy stuff in WWE. I've got snacks down here too, and a lot of protein. And it's another up too, because these Bray Wyatt vignettes, for me at least, get better and better every week, and I always want to see what he's going to do. Up. This week, that rambling rabbit puppet thing, whatever it was called, got decapitated by Mercy the Buzzard, even though he's a velociraptor, and it was really messed up, especially because Bray was all like, oh, it doesn't matter, we all make mistakes, I'll forgive you, you can do whatever you want to express yourself. And to forgive him, or at least accept him for his ways, Bray also said, let's have a picnic, and then you cut to a bunch of kids who look like they would rather have been anywhere else. So I guess it's a lot like us when we watch Raw. Hilarious. Honestly though, these are so messed up, I cannot wait to see where they're gonna go. And obviously we need a payoff at some point, but until then, it's one of the reasons I do actually tune into Raw. I wanna know, I wanna see, and I wanna have my own opinion. That's what it's all about. Rollins then cut another one of these stare down the camera lens promos, and I started to get excited, especially because it's far better than when somebody sticks a microphone in their nose and asks stupid questions like, how do you feel that you just lost? Well, I feel fantastic that I just lost. Thanks for asking, person in a suit. Anyway, Seth is going to beat up AJ at some point and give him a couple of black eyes. Cool up. It was then Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre and WWE. We were so close. I could smell it. I thought you were going to give me some evidence, some proof that I could hold on to and think to myself, oh my gosh, I can see the change. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was even going to give it a golden up, but instead you didn't pull the trigger. And it gets a down. The point is this, Drew and Roman had a great match. I think it was better than their WrestleMania encounter as they continued to punch lumps out of each other. I didn't even care that we got to the end and Reigns hit his spear and I was like, okay, he's gonna win, but that's fine. I was so desperate to see a clean win that I was invested, although obviously if I had my choice, I'd give it to McIntyre because I think there's a more interesting narrative there. But you know what we got instead? We just got the same old distraction finish. Well, not even that. We got a DQ finish when Shane McMahon and Elias ran in to start beating up Roman Reigns. Miz then came out to chase Shane McMahon off with a steel chair as Elias held up Roman Reigns so Drew McIntyre could claim or kick him in the face. I would have loved a proper win-loss here. I really would have, because it would have been the biggest change we'd seen in WWE in years. But once again, we went back to the mold. The mold is over here. That same old mold from like 1997. Why can't we just come up with a way to make sense of it or plan it out so we go, okay, Drew lost here, so make sure we book him in an angle next week that sums it up. It's not like it makes a difference anyway. Everybody loses all the time on Raw or SmackDown. I feel nothing to either Roman Reigns or Drew McIntyre because of this schmoz. Also, yes, Elias was on Raw, so I started thinking to myself, well, that doesn't make sense, because surely he's a wild card, and we'd already seen Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns, and that's the three that Vince McMahon talked about earlier. Silly you, my friends. I will tell you about it in 1 second. We also saw The Miz get his hands on Shane McMahon backstage, and this was actually kind of cool because basically Shane McMahon had run away from The Miz, so Charlie Caruso had found him with her camera crew and was saying, oh Shane, you've got yourself into some bother. He didn't want to talk because he was scared, but the beatdown on Shane McMahon by The Miz was filmed by this camera crew, so it looked a bit like the backstage segment had just been caught randomly as opposed to a produced set-up shot. I thought that was kind of cool. Eventually Shane McMahon did just kick The Miz in the balls, then he got in a car and he drove away. There was something there. It triggered my eyes. We then found out that if you do indeed want to leave the company, certainly don't tell management within WWE because you will get revivaled, a new term I've just come up with. And I tell you dudes, this just isn't a down, it's a brown down. Short version, because one day I'll be dead and I'm not overly wasting my life on this. But earlier in the show, we'd seen the Usos mucking around backstage in the Revival's locker room and we didn't know why. As it turned out, they had a new product called Usi Hot and they'd rubbed it on the Revival's gear, and as the Revival wear pants, their penises were now on fire. This meant the proposed match between the Revival and the Good Brothers, who were already in the ring, got cancelled as Dash and Dawson rolled around like crazy people trying to calm themselves down. Now, I will say this, credit to the Revival, who bought into this 100% and made it less bad than it could have been otherwise, but still, in the feud between the Revival and the Usos, it's all about trying to irritate other people's groins. Jimmy and Jay then invited them to the top of the stage where they were because they had some water, but silly Revival poured that on their genitalia when they were actually meant to drink it. Water makes the Usi Hot worse. Eventually Dash and Dawson just ran backstage, screaming probably, ow my dick, ow my penis, ow my meat and two veg. You choose whichever term you want, and that's what happened. The real shame here, and the real reason why it gets a brown down, is this isn't just affecting the Revival, but now we're dragging the Usos down with them, and the Usos are probably the best tag team in the world. Another look down the camera promo, this time by Kofi Kingston. I will say that variety has never been WWE's strong point when they do come up with a new idea, but these are still good. He's going to beat Daniel Bryan later. Up. Which brings us to the thing I've been hinting at throughout this episode of Ups and Downs, where somehow WWE undid their own rule that they'd only introduced 2 hours beforehand. And WWE, if you can't stick to your own ideas within the same show. What am I meant to do? What am I meant to do? How am I meant to understand? How am I meant to go on? How am I meant to walk out the door every day and not say to myself, nah, WWE makes no sense? Basically, Lars Sullivan came out and he beat the crap out of No Way Jose and his conga line. And then when he went backstage to see Vince McMahon was on the phone, and this is what Vince McMahon said too. It all ties in, it made me really, really mad. He said, oh, by the way, Shane McMahon and Elias weren't part of the wild card. Okay, so who let them in? Who's in control of the door on Monday Night Raw? Because they need to be fired, and you need to get someone else in. But then Vince was so scared and so intimidated by Lars Sullivan, he went, oh, actually, let's make that wild card thing 4. So let's rewind. Let's get back to the start. 1, it was meant to be 3 people that were able to go between Raw and SmackDown from both shows, but then it was 5 on this night, 6 with Lars Sullivan, but 3 of them weren't real, and then the last one we were so scared of, we just made it real. All this means is that I don't know what the actual rule is or what the outcome. Is it 3? Is it 4? Can other people just randomly turn up? And if so, how am I meant to know what brand they're on? By the way, if you've missed it, clearly this is a down. I mean, what is it? What is the number? The number, for all I know, could be 85,786. Maybe I'm now allowed to join WWE and just jump across to each shows. There's nothing put in place here for you to be able to buy into because it's already changed. How was it able to change within 1 episode of Raw? Right, let's calm down. But honestly, this really does scream of WWE in panic mode. And I know there's a lot to do, and again, I'm pleased we're trying to do something, but just come up with the concept backstage and then execute it in front of a television camera, and I'll take that on and I'll either like it or I won't like it. But please, don't take me on this crazy roller coaster so that when Raw is over, I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen on SmackDown tomorrow, and not in a good way. You could now put the entire Raw roster on there, and I go, well, I guess that makes sense, given what I saw 24 hours previous. Put it over there. Thankfully, we did have a nice main event, because that was always going to be the way. It was Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. Not going to lie, I got a kick out of seeing Daniel Bryan back on Monday nights. I'm going to give it an up. It was nothing out of the ordinary, and I mean that in a good way. There were a couple of good near full spot, but eventually Kofi did hit Daniel with the Trouble in Paradise. He's still the WWE Champion. What happens to Kevin Owens now and their Money in the Bank match? I couldn't tell you. I don't understand it, but at least when this was done, I was like, oh, I like Daniel Bryan. I like Kofi Kingston, and they had a good match. Also, the big cliffhanger for this week was Michael Cole saying, who's going to turn up on SmackDown? That's a great question, Michael Cole, and I'm going to bet you don't have the answer, and nobody in WWE does. They're probably discussing it right now. And if you are discussing it, I've got a suggestion for you. Put Repo Man on SmackDown. At least then I will have something to go crazy about on SmackDown Ups and Downs tomorrow. I need to load down. I'm going to go back into my hole in a second. I won't. I'll finish the video. But it is getting difficult, is it not? I still love WWE and I get a kick out of it, and they've given me so many good memories over the years, and I'm still positive. Like, as soon as I stop the camera, I'm not going to go down and go, oh, I can't believe it, because it's just a wrestling show. But in terms of me being a critic and talking to you, I have never seen WWE as just all over the place as it is now. I'm not saying that it's WCW levels of bad, because WCW used to have no DQ matches that ended in DQ, but something is not right, and it needs to be fixed. Plug that hole. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Raw. My word, will I be interested. Like, share, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles. Go and follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. And you can also jump across to Defiance Wrestling channel and see my comeback match in a ring. My name is Simon Miller. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow to up those downs for SmackDown, unless I collapse on the floor before then, trying to process what the WWE Wildcard Rule is. And if you'd like to let me know, I would truly appreciate it, especially if your name is Vincent Kennedy McMahon.